Hello, everyone, and welcome to Answer the Call. Today's topic is Star Citizen's biggest flaw. Now, it is not what you think Star Citizen's biggest flaw is. It's what I think Star Citizen's biggest flaw is, essentially. And what I think Star Citizen's biggest flaw is, and that's the topic. I didn't have enough room to write this topic, so understand that this isn't really it's a little clicky. It's more than a little clicky. I didn't know what to title it, so here we are. But what I think Star Citizen's biggest flaw is your ship's vulnerability the moment you get out of it, right? Ships are massively important to Star Citizen. The scale of Star Citizen is one of its biggest selling features. So in order to scale the game, actually scale, move through it, you need a ship. So in so many situations where you need a ship, your ship is very vulnerable to being destroyed, whether by NPCs or players. Think about how few NPCs we have in the game now, especially hostile ones. There's going to be a lot of scenarios in the future where an NPC ship could just come by and pew pew, your ship's gone, right? There's so many scenarios in this game where you're going to be left alone and have to use a service beacon to call somebody, right? I think it's a huge flaw. I think it's very, very kind of broken in a way. And Star Citizen was designed to look really cool, but it hasn't yet designed to make sense. And I think this is one of the biggest things that don't make sense. Yes, there are a million other flaws with Star Citizen. Chris Roberts, the pace of development, right? All these other things that people, point at that are the flaws of Star Citizen. But in a moment where the game's in alpha, and we hear it on Star Citizen Live all the time with the developers saying, yeah, we had a conversation about that after seeing this YouTube video or whatever, right? These are the things where, as a Star Citizen backer and as a community, it's very cool and actually advantageous, I think, for the developers to have conversations about issues in the game and things like that, where it can kind of stir the pot a little bit, get the juices flowing, ideas flowing out there for them for possible solutions at some point in the future. Do I think they should be working on this in 3.19? No. Right? But having those conversations with the community, that leads to conversations for CIG, I think are really, really important at this stage of the game. Now, we did a lot of discussion. This topic actually came up almost a week ago in our Discord, and I was like, oh man, this is such a good topic for Answer the Call. Let's have it. I'm going to save it for then. Okay, so that is where I am. My solution, I will say this, and I will say it very simply. My solution is not for CIG to create some overarching crazy system where they protect your ship. There's like these big designs, let's say, that, there's going to be a bubble that pops up or you'll go underground and you can hide, No. I think they should give the tools to the player so it is the player's fault when their ship explodes, not the game's fault. And I'll leave it very vague at that. I gave a lot of details before the show, but I want to hear what other people have to say. I think that's the best thing about the show, is that it's random people from the community coming in and sharing their points of view on these things. So it's not just a content creator sitting here saying, I know more about the game than you do, and CIG should listen to me and not you, right? CIG, I hope, is here to listen to you. So the first caller we have is Virgil. He is the one who started the topic for me. So what better person to have on the show than Virgil? Virgil, welcome. Hello. How are you? Thank you for
good.
Stirring this topic up for me. I've been thinking about it all week, and yeah, I think it's just massively important. The reason I really want to hear from you is because you run a PvP org, a PK org, or I don't know how you would describe yourself. I think a lot of people have their words that they describe you with. One of them would be starting with a G. But I think you've been... What?
The good players. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Great guys. A great guy org.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I think you're on this side of the topic that most people haven't experienced and probably have a really good point of view from that side. So I thought it was really important to start with that and then go into the more non-combat scenarios where combat sometimes gets involved and sort of breaks things. But
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to lead in for you because again, I don't have
Just
this
quickly,
experience. But yeah, go with
I've
it.
got some notes. I've got like a lot of notes on the solution side, but the PvP, I think like you ask me some questions and I'll answer and I'll just like tell you the gist of like what I think. But I think on the PvP side of it, you and me might have to work more together on it. But
Okay. Do you
yeah,
want to
I
start
think
there?
like yeah. We'll do
Okay,
PvP and then we can talk solutions after. Yeah,
let
like
me lead it a little bit then. Is
yeah, go for it.
do you think it's as big of a problem as I do? Do you think it's essential to because like I don't know, if we look at
I
the
think in
situation in
bunkers it
Ukraine,
is.
what's the first thing that Russia did? They took out their they took out a lot of their ability to get into planes, and that was part of the
Hmm.
strategy there. Is that part of, is that something that you should leave open to players? Is that to have that strategy as an option? I mean, that's a I think a legitimate question is um kind of taking people's ships away from them as part of a strategy. If we completely remove this problem, that might be a problem too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Oh,
it's
I never
like
changed scenes. Sorry.
I think I think the bunker problem, like you bring up like going down and doing like ground content. Like if I go to SBK with crimes that the turrets kill you at SBK if you crimes that anyway, your ship. But
Yep.
yeah, like going to bunkers, yeah, it's a massive problem. Like absolutely. But do I think that ships getting shot on pads at stations is that a bigger problem? No, but that's only because like I've seen it get like balanced so heavily. Like every night I was staring at Port Olisar, and you wanted to shoot someone on the pad, like it was just done. It was easy. You never had to think about it, but you know every patch they've been dialing it in further and further, and like if you go for example Everest, and this was my last experience at 316 with it, is like you go into a crusader ship, like an Ares, sorry, or a sentinel, even a gladius talon, that stuff, but they've implemented missile turrets. Right now the
Yep.
missile turrets were no joke, and we were all preaching like, oh yeah, missile turrets would get the job done because and they're not dependent on desync and stuff like that, and that it works. Like it's if I like to put you in my shoes, right? Like if I were to go attack a station, and like my goal to go attack a station for one is not to shoot at ships on pads. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing fun about that. There never has been. But like if you want to go to a choke point, it's a station most of the time. Right now it's the river, but most of the time it was a station, right? And so I would go to the station immediately. NPCs start spawning, so ships start spawning on you, and whatever, that's like manageable to a degree. But then you have the large turrets that will one shot you. There's like these huge turrets there now that have gone up in size. If you slow down or even fly at the station at the wrong angle, you'll take one to the face and it's over. You're in prison. And then the missile turrets, like they launch like specific, like really well tracking missiles that you have to spend flares on. Now, if you're not constantly spending the flares, you're gonna die to one of those torps. It's the size 5 missiles, which is a torp, and they will one shot you. Like you'll die. So the point is as soon as you go to a station in an Ares, I don't know what the exact time was. It's been a while since I've done it, but you're looking at maybe 5 minutes before you have to like get out of there and go get flares at some outpost again. So the point is you can't sustain staying there with Crimestead anymore. You used to be able to, like everyone remembers when Port Olisar was, what it originally was, and we were
Yep.
able to hold on to it really easily. But those days are long numbered,
Sure.
and sieging stations just isn't that feasible anymore. So yeah, when people are saying like, "Oh, I get shot at pads all the time," I don't know. I don't know what part of the PvP community they're talking about. I don't know if it's like a rare occasion, like is that guy a streamer? Is there like a vendetta there, something like
No,
that?
no, no.
But
I think I know the answer to that, and I think this just comes from my poker dealing background. Is
mhm,
the things like bad situations, you remember those more than ever, and you don't
mhm,
remember like the day to day. Oh, I got into game and had no problems. Like I even remember
mhm,
the last time, and it was like a year ago was the last time I had an issue where somebody shot my ship before I can get into it at a station, but I remember it vividly, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, and I
it was
get that.
annoying. So for me,
Yep.
the issue about your scenario is, I agree, it's not a common thing. It's not something that I think it's the reason why you brought it up first is I think that's what started the conversation in the Discord that
Yep.
morning. But I think it's a bigger problem than that, like as a grand, like overarching thing in Star Citizen, is that when you're not in your ship and you're not in control of it, it is very, very vulnerable. So just because the station locking down a station is harder than it used to be doesn't mean that this isn't a problem necessarily, right? So I'm glad you brought it up because that's what started the conversation. But
this is where
it's not
like
mega
we butt
relevant to
heads.
it. Yeah.
This is where like you and me debate on this. Is like
Okay.
for me, and I wrote this down in my notes. It's like I agree, but I just don't think that like players should get this free ticket out of the station every time. Like for example, and I know that's not what you're saying, but
Yeah,
let's
it's not
just
a
say ships
free
are
ticket, but some people might want that, like a
and I
vulnerability
disagree.
timer.
I don't think they.
Yeah.
And it just depends. Like, there's a balance, right? There's a medium in between. How safe should you be there, and how deadly is a siege, and that's like where I have my problem now. Don't get me wrong. In a high security system, because I know I'm going to get so much shit in the comments, but in a high security system, if a station cannot be sieged, then so be it. Like, I don't have a problem with that. But say stations that are in medium or low security, okay? So we're talking the player knows that the system they're in is not completely safe. In a system like that, I don't think they should get a free ride out of the castle, right? You're sieging a castle, it's under siege, like, period. If you can manage the siege, like, if you've got a big enough force to maintain a siege on a station. Now, if let's just use the current design of the game, right? It's extremely easy to fly away from combat. Any player in this game can get out of any fight by just flying to max speed and getting away. Like the PvP, like the way the combat works right now, you can't be killed unless you make an error or you want to be killed. It's very easy to escape combat right now. Which is the bad combat design at the moment. But
Okay.
So
but
my concern would be.
Oh, go finish.
ahead.
I'm sorry. No.
I was just going to say my concern would be if we make these ships immune, and they can get off the pad no problem, then it's over. Then sieging a station means nothing if they're immune on the pad completely, because you will never catch anyone leaving a station, and then that's it. You're never going to find them in the gigantic, vast verse that this is.
Let's hold there for a moment.
Go.
I agree with you. I don't believe we should be invulnerable. I thought there was just like one or two people who brought that up in the Twitch chat. I would imagine most people agree with us there. What I think is the solution for the station sieging issue is, number one, I think you and I both know that the being able to run away from combat thing is definitely going to be addressed from the way it is now, right? So as far as bringing that up, relevant to the topic, but not that relevant, because I think that there's a possible solution in the future. I also believe that with the discussions that they've had more recently about personal hangars, I don't know how, I think it's going to be very Grimhex in the future. So I think as far as stations go, most likely the solution is solved. The problem is solved. Because the only issue that I have is that when you spawn a ship, it's just sitting there to be killed, and I have no control over it. And if it's a ship that was claimed, or if it was a ship that hasn't been flown yet, the engines and shields aren't even on. So it's even easier. So the only thing that I ask in that specific scenario is allow me to get in the ship, turn it on, and turn my shields on, so you and I are equals. and you don't have an overwhelming advantage over me.
But I don't think
I don't want an invulnerable timer. I don't want anything like that.
But if say like I'm with like 10 guys and we're sieging a station, I don't think you should be on a even playing field.
You're not.
I think that
you're
you
not.
should be.
You have 10 guys
Yeah,
and
I
I'm
think-
one. You still have the advantage. You know what hangar I'm in, and as soon as the door is open, you still have the advantage. So that's where I think
Yeah.
you have the advantage you deserve.
Yeah, and I could agree with that.
And you don't have the advantage that you don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I just like at the end of the day, it's like I think if you put a huge amount of effort into sieging a station, it's supposed to suck for the guys inside
Absolutely.
the station or the castle getting sieged, right? Like
Absolutely.
in any, castle, you don't if people want to starve you out, you're in there starving. You don't just walk out, or run out and get away for free, and that's my only concern is like, and the problem is too is like, and with just so you know, like my opinion would completely change any time this gets rebalanced. Like, if when they change speed and with ships in combat, okay, then like immediately my position this is going to change and scale, to whatever the balance is. But yeah, like I just think it's dangerous territory when we think about like, ships should be completely immune. Now, like, should ships spawn with, shields up? Sure. Or another thing too, and like we're going to talk about, possible solutions and stuff, but sorry, I just want to reiterate, yeah, like it's the sieging aspect that is my concern. I just think that, and there's some answers to this that doesn't involve you getting into a ship, right? Like leaning on your organization for help, leaning on the station's defenses, the security NPCs, using the combat assistance beacons, which just nobody uses because they're lazy. Like criminal players with crime stat don't see combat assistance beacons. So, and people like just don't use those because they're lazy. If you put a combat assistance beacon because your station's getting attacked and you actually put a reasonable amount of money there, 200k, then you're going to get a response out of that. Like I think, and does that system need some work? Yeah, like maybe you should be able to put some
I don't even think it does.
description in your beacon or whatever.
Oh, sure, maybe. I think it's more just when there's more players in a server, it might make more sense. I think you're just in a situation where, like with that in particular, I think that there's a lot of solutions that we already know are going to fix them, right? If somebody, if a group like yours, let's say, maximum 30 guys at any given time. I don't want to give your player counts or whatever.
Fair enough number,
I don't know, but let's just say that number. There should be more people in the in the vicinity that you can contact than we have now, right? Whereas that it just doesn't work in that scenario. If you, I don't know if you're done with the sieging on stations thing. But for me, I think the problem is way more just the general, as soon as you get out of your ship, there's no control over it. And there's no control over the situation.
The only reason I was on that was because, you brought me on from the PvP perspective. But yeah, as a larger issue, if you take the PvP stations out of it, yeah, it's massive, Mike, for sure.
Yeah, well, let's bring it down to Jump
go
Town.
ahead.
Something that you've definitely experienced over the last 6 to 9 months or whatever. Somebody self-destructs a ship at Jumptown, everybody's ship explodes. Ships die way too easily in weird scenarios, right? Or you are down at Jumptown and you're in a situation, everybody, again, I understand, everybody knows everybody signs up for the combat in that scenario, right? Everybody knows what Jumptown is. But you're out of your ship. It just seems so much in the player that's in the ship's advantage that you gotta open the ship's door, you gotta walk in, you have to wait for the animation for the chair to spin around, then the ship powers up and the game finally recognizes that you're in it. By all that time, no matter how big your ship is, it's gone. So that's kind of where my experience and where my PTSD, for lack of a better term, comes from with these scenarios is there's just so many situations where I get out of my ship and that's it. And a ship is so important that I feel like we should start talking about that specific scenario. I do think what it spawned from was that station thing, but I think the solution is just give me a damn hangar no matter the size of my ship and we're okay. And with personal hangars coming, it sounds like that's probably going to be what happens. Everywhere else in the game,
I mean, they've confirmed that. So,
everywhere else in the game, we don't have that, like that little safety net to balance the scenario. So if I have a crime stat on me and I'm down in the bunker trying to clear it, what's the first thing everybody does? They blow up your ship. So no matter what, they win. No matter how bad you are,
you're never going to clear crime stat and still have a ship at the end of it. Yeah, no way.
So then in a game, in a game with permadeath, what do? What's the fastest thing to get back in and start playing the video game? You backspace. That's terrible.
Yep.
And that's why I think it's Star Citizen's biggest flaw, and that's why we're here having this conversation.
Yep.
You got the floor now, buddy.
And I think I think there's three ways you can do this, right? Like there's one, if you notice, like 316 compared to now, all the signatures of ground vehicles went way lower. So if you were at Jumptown, right on this, right on the outpost, you could see any ground vehicle 6K out. So, and then they lowered the signatures. Yeah, so you lower the signatures on the ground vehicles now that a ship has to come down and make itself really nicely vulnerable before it's going to pick up that they even exist.
Yep.
It's like that with I forgot it, the one that launches the torpedoes off its back. Either way, yeah, so like ground vehicles got balanced because the problem is what is a ground vehicle if it's just food for ships every time? So it had to have an advantage to fit into the ecosystem.
Sure.
They lowered the signatures. That was like the perfect move. And players talked about that all the time, and then CIG did it the next patch, which is why podcasts like this are constructive.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody who's typing it's an alpha, why are we having this conversation? I'm literally going to delete your comment from the YouTube channel because it's absolutely stupid.
Yeah, and it's like and so I think that you could do that. So a ship goes off, it's cold, it's dead cold. You can't pick it up. You don't know it unless you can physically see it, and you fly right up to it and go, oh look, there's actually a saber parked there or a ship parked there. Maybe that's a way to do it. Another one is capacitors, right? Like they're moving in this direction where you can't have everything at once.
Yeah.
So that kind of fits into the design with the ships. So, for example, when your ship is in park, you're not using weapons, so there's no need for any of the capacitor being weapons. There's nothing being used on engines. You're in park. You're not using comms or quantum, etc. So it makes sense that your ship should be focusing entirely on its shields. So kind of like a turtle stance or something. As soon as it's in park, the shields harden, and that buys you enough time. Should that amount of time be balanced? Yes, and very carefully. But maybe to give you a fighting chance. And the story fits into the design, right? Like people would go, oh yeah, that makes sense. Rather than you park your ship and then it just magically goes in stealth. For me, immersion's out the window if it was like that. Like if your ship literally just camouflaged when it was in park and you couldn't see it, I think that would be really dorky if you ask me.
I agree. Like a cloaking shield was mentioned. Just now, actually, I just read it again. I don't think that that's good for Star Citizen necessarily. One of the things that I mentioned was like obviously you have EM and IR signatures and they're lowered when you turn your ship off. But the one thing that never changes is your cross section, right? And I think for larger ships that would be very difficult. But we saw in the 2019 CitizenCon them pull a sheet off of the Ursa rover. And well, what if that sheet helps prevent lower your CS signature, so it's a little bit harder to find. What if you choose a certain color or a camouflage type sheet that makes it a lot harder for you to see? Then you're putting the control in the player's hands, and it was on the player that it was their fault that they got seen, or they did everything possible and hey, it just didn't work out. I didn't hide my thing under the tree far enough or whatever, right? I think it just being a sitting duck all the time and for no fault of the player in a lot of situations, because there's just some places you can't hide, then what do you do, right? And I think that just comes down to, and again, why I mentioned that, hey, this is kind of a big flaw. This is something worth talking about, because if there's no, and I don't think CIG should just go and make a system where, like, I know Space Cutlet mentioned this a lot, is when I get to a place like a station, I should have a shield bubble. I don't know about you, but I've played games like this on the PvP side. It's incredibly frustrating to watch players bounce in and out of shield bubbles. We have it right now with the Armistice Zone. The second you get in, they're invulnerable, and they'll pop in and out of it, or they'll just sit there and wait on the edge. It's incredibly annoying as a PvPer to deal with that. It's not fun either, so that's game breaking on that side. But yeah, I mean, I think that there are some small solutions to put the things into a player's hands to go, you know what? I messed up, and that's why I lost my ship. I didn't lose my ship because the game was just not protecting me in any way possible, which is sort of what happens now.
The thing is, too, is we have this like 316 way of thinking, but the future that they talk about is like soon you'll be disabling ships, and it would take a lot to go out of their way to destroy a ship, etc. Sure. So like shooting or destroying ships, a large portion of that fight can depend on like actually destroying a considerable hull. Like if me shooting at your ship and was 20% dealing with the shields and then 80% dealing with the hull and the armor and stuff, which is the future of the game, right? Like that buys you that time to try do something there too. So
okay, we can
that's
touch
the problem,
on that.
right? Is in modern combat right now, it's like as soon as the shield's gone, like they're done. They're down to the last 20%. It's almost over.
Yes, but I
unless
think
they can recover it. But go ahead.
I'm sure you watched Fight or Flight, and I know that was during a 316 and pretty desyncy situation. But I think there was a lot of fights that lasted a really, really long time, and time to kill is kind of a thing that I feel like I've heard PvP players mention, things like that. So I feel like it's a little contradictory to that part of the game. Is we're going like, okay, so you're gonna have to get through this, and then you're gonna have to get through armor. I guess the one cool thing about armor is it doesn't regenerate, right? So there's that part of it, which is really cool. Is you would have to manually regenerate that in the ways that we hear about with salvage coming. But the I think that still where it's Star Citizen's biggest flaw again is, well, sure, you're going to be able to disable ships. But again, a ship just sitting there defenseless is very, very easy for a ship to, one, disable fairly quickly, or if you really want to be an asshole, blow up. Because the way that they explained, well, you would be able to blow up a ship by targeting what? Its power plant. Well, if a ship isn't moving, it's going to be really easy to target certain parts of it that you want to target, right? So there's things there that and again, people mention solutions to some of these problems, but I'm gonna leave them up to people who are in the queue, because usually I say what everyone said, and then somebody says, oh, well, they said my thing already, so yeah.
I mean, no matter what, the answer is time, isn't it? Like, what you're looking for is a good, believable reason to buy you time to react to.
Correct.
Your ship is under attack and you're not near it.
Yeah, I thought you meant. I thought you meant time.
Ahead, sorry.
I thought you meant time for like Star Citizens to develop a solution. But yeah, I agree with you. 100%. Is not only time, but an ability to, as a player outside your ship, to not only give yourself time and give yourself a significant amount of time, but give yourself time to counter the issue.
And here was my third idea, right? I think this could work too. Is like, it's the radar, right? Like, it's knowledge. So maybe with FPS radar, you're also getting access or piggybacking off of your ship's radar.
Yes.
So, and maybe when your ship is in parked and you've got it sitting there scanning, you're seeing people because your ship is parked, just sitting there. You're seeing people further out because that's what your ship's focusing on.
You maybe could
So,
see them before they see you.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that would be a good balance, right? Like
Absolutely.
you could argue the capacitor or the ship is in that state, where it's just purely relying on radar or scanning ranges. So, and that could tie into FPS radar where, you see someone's coming on your FPS radar from your ship radar. So you're going to hold back to your ship and hopefully get there in a time to defend yourself. So
hell yeah.
I think there's a couple ways. It's like it's like hardening of shields. It's the stealth route without going completely camouflage because then every ship has got stealth. So it's that low signature approach. It's the hardened shields approach, or it's like some sort of radar gameplay. And all of those make perfect sense with me. And what the result ends up being doesn't bother me. Like I don't care how they do it, as long as there's balance there. It's the same with the like attacking stations thing. Like I don't care if every ship spawns in a hangar at all, as long as when a station is getting attacked, it sucks for the people that are hiding in the castle, and don't have the army to compete or whatever. Like as long as the balance is there, and I don't think it's there right now. You're right, and it's a massive problem. You go to a bunker with crime stat, your ship is gone. It's not going to survive. Like the outpost turret itself is going to shoot at your ship. Like I go to SPK to clear crime stat. There's no way I walk out of there with my ship still. Never in a chance.
No, there's like two places that you can hide, but at the same time, it's like
blind spots for the turrets and stuff.
Yeah, there's like a couple blind spots, but I'll tell you about them one day. That they're there, but the idea, it's still like not great. Like a great situation. Like, okay, should you be able to just land there freely as a person with a crime stat? No, probably not. Should you get dropped off? More likely, yes. But the like SPK, I think is a bad example because SPK I think is so legacy that it just it's like a weird that one's just a weird one. Even though I love SPK, but in
even
general,
if I would go to bunkers with a friend of mine and all the time, like we destroy the turrets on top of the outpost and I don't recall, but I think I remember the turrets respawning on top of the outpost and then destroying our ship that was parked there.
Yeah, and there's a blind spot at outposts with a single turret, but not multiples if they respawn.
And the game is more and more going in this direction where they are looking like a lot of the gameplay that's coming out, it's all ground stuff. So it is a huge issue, and I can definitely see why it's your largest issue. Like we're going in the direction of ground bunkers with having different mission types, etc. Ground loot, like you loot players on the ground. Jump town, all this stuff. It's more, and all these ground vehicles coming out. It's more and more going towards the ground, and the problem is we're playing a game where all the power's in flight. And and some of that does here's the problem too,
and that's
right?
Okay, but you got to pull it back a little. I think all the power being in the ship is part of what's special about Star Citizen, but it's also one of the biggest selling features is that you can get out of it and you can move around it, and you're not locked to your seat.
Yep. Yeah, and there's definitely some helplessness as soon as you leave the ship. It's like all bets are off because you're say this radar, idea that we're talking about doesn't come out at all. You can never even tell if a ship is, above you. They're a pixel wide.
Exactly.
You got no idea that they're coming until they're really close, and then you can hear their engines. Maybe the answer is audio cues. Maybe when you're in the bunker, you can hear them as they're coming down the atmo really loud or something like that. That'd probably be the weakest solution of them all, but. Yeah, I there's definitely a massive imbalance there, and it's definitely something that needs to start getting taken seriously.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it will, and I'm sure it should.
Yeah.
So yeah, good find. It's funny. You don't see other content creators and people thinking about this, and talking about this, and I haven't even thought about it that much either. Like I knew it sucked, but I haven't been thinking about the future and how much that's going to start to weigh more and more, because I guarantee in 2 to 3 patches we're all going to be like complaining that this is one of the major issues.
Exactly,
Like
man.
right now, like we're complaining about flight being too fast. That's going to get fixed, and then the next thing up is going to be that ground completely sucks in comparison to air, and there's nothing we can do against ships. So yeah, you're 100% right. You're on it early, and I definitely think it needs to get looked at.
Well, yeah.
That's all I've got on my notes. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think I think you and I are on very much the same page in a lot of ways here, and I think I just look at it as, I think the last thing that I would say on this is CIG knows this is a problem and have been trying to solve this thing since, I believe, before 3.0 was even a thing. The idea of going to Security Post Korea and getting shot at from ships, like just having a ship nose down pointing at you in FPS has been a problem forever and still is as well. And
I'll tell you one thing, like quickly while we're here.
Yeah,
this is one thing I really appreciate about hover mode, because
I was just going to bring it up.
The dorky.
Yeah.
Do you want to go there? Do you want to talk about?
Well, no, I just think that was one of the things that they sold us on with hover mode. That was one of the major reasons why they did it in the first place, is they hated the idea of somebody just standing, floating, and nose pointed down, shooting at you in FPS. Yeah. It created a thing where it required a bit of skill to be able to do something like that. It was balance to that problem. There were so many other problems with it, but that was so what I was going to say was that if you don't think CIG doesn't know that this is a problem, if you don't think that they've been trying to fix it forever, it started with railguns, then it was hover mode, now it's a handheld missile cannon, right? There's all sorts of things that they've been trying to do to solve the great imbalance between somebody being in a ship and someone not being in it, whether it's shooting at a ship on the ground, on a pad, or shooting at someone in FPS. It's been this great imbalance in the game for its entirety.
That's another way to balance it too, right? It's like reintroduce a more balanced working version of hover mode. Because then, like, I remember when hover mode was out and trying to shoot at ground vehicles from a ship, it was hell. Like, you had to balance like speed, momentum, the angle that you're on, the timing, like how far you are. Because if you lean down, say 120 degrees, whatever, to look down at someone, you only got a specific amount of time before you have to start pulling up and save yourself from crashing.
What do you think of this? Somebody said this in chat, and it is very simple. I don't know if it's enough of in that direction. The answer is simple: force decoupled mode in atmosphere. Because when you're in decoupled mode, you fall. So at least you have to put some inputs in. But I don't think you have to put enough inputs in to really balance it enough. But at the same time, I kind of agree. Is if you're in atmosphere, you're just in coupled mode at that point.
It just depends, right? Like, the one thing, before we turn this into like a hover mode podcast, I think it like you could just be holding, like, back, tapping the S key and then be looking straight down. Like, the point, and I agree, like, when hover mode comes back in, it should be more simplistic, but yeah, like you want the crazy or the hard part about it was, managing all of these things at once. And, I was actually a fan of hover mode, believe it or not. But I definitely think that would help too. It's definitely a contributing factor to air versus ground is actually hard. And, like maintaining and doing that, definitely. It should be a task. It's just, buy the guys on the ground some more time. That's it. Like, make preying on stuff that's parked on the ground, more lengthy task. So yeah, hover mode is it's funny that you were about to mention that I was
absolutely.
yeah. So yeah, I agree. But multiple ways to fix it. It definitely needs to be fixed, and we'll be a better off game for it. So
yeah,
good stuff, man. Think
Virgil,
that's it.
Yeah, thank you for getting my mind going with this specific topic. So I know you said like I'm on it early. Well, you guys were, and I just was like, yo, this is actually a huge problem. So
it's like, fun to talk about.
It's great.
I really like talking about
every
stuff. So.
single one of us has experienced it on one side or the other, and that's where a lot of the topics and podcasts that we have don't work. This one, everybody's experienced this. There's no way you haven't, right? So that's why I thought it was really important.
Criminal, like if you're logistics, all of it. Yeah, it's like a cargo guy, a miner. Like criminals clearing crime stat, day-to-day guys doing bunkers. Yeah, people racing on the ground or going to the river. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it affects literally everyone, and it's a good time bringing it up. All right. Alrighty, I look forward to hearing the rest of the calls, and I'll talk to you later. Yeah, good job.
Right. Yeah, man, Virgil. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Bye. Somebody in chat I'd also love to hear from asked, how can you join the call? So, !Discord in chat or discord.gg/SaltEMike. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, we do these Sunday mornings. It's 9 a.m. Eastern now. We started a little bit early because Virgil's from Australia, and I really, really wanted to talk to him about this topic. So the last couple of weeks, we've done him a bit early so we can talk to him specifically because just the passion's there and for those certain things, and the knowledge is there. So if anybody wants to join in the queue, somebody backed out, so I'll be taking one, maybe two more on this topic today. So if you guys want to pop in, feel free. And let's continue. So our next caller is Henrik. Henrik has been waiting for a while. Hello, how are you?
Hey, man. How are you?
Good. How's school?
Not much more final exam coming up.
Nice. Yeah, Emmy just finished hers, so.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
Exciting.
It is.
What do you have on the topic?
First off, can I touch about the hover mode? Because I actually like the system as well, the old hover mode, but I do understand people that wasn't that good at flying, and I had issue flying beforehand.
I think even people that were okay at it had really bad issues with it. So, like,
some of the bugs in it. I remember, I think it was landed with the nose down, one of my ships once, and there was no way I could get out of the vertical hangars because of that.
Yeah, it was tough.
Yeah,
maybe a little too tough.
Yeah, but. Yeah, I think something like the hover would help with it. With stuff like that. Decoupled could be an help, but the biggest issue there I see people when I'm actually I'm never flying in decoupled mode. I'm always flying with I don't know what the other mode is called.
Coupled.
But yeah, coupled mode. Yeah. Right, no, but I'm always flying coupled because for some reason I can't really feel my speed in the different directions.
Okay.
So I'm using that, so if I'm letting go of all my controls, I know I'm going to zero. So
gotcha.
That is one issue I can see people can have is simply I thought I was flying in this direction, but I'm actually flying to the left. So, yeah, but that could be an issue with people that's usually flying couple mode. But it would be learnable, but it is something you have to think about when introducing it.
Yeah.
But my primary solution for this would be harder shields. Simply when your ship is turned off, or not off, but the engine is powered down and you don't have any power to your guns, the shield will get maybe a 10 time increase or something like that.
Yeah.
So it would be, you would be able to kill it, but it would be exceptionally hard.
Yeah, I mentioned something like that. The only thing is I think you have to also tie in a debuff to that buff after. So as soon as you're like somebody called it turtle mode activated in chat. Like once you get out of turtle mode, I think that there should be a moment of vulnerability because you have to cooldowns and your ship just can't. You can't go straight from turtle mode right into combat. Otherwise, I think it gives you too much of an advantage, and it's not.
That shouldn't be. Maybe the turtle mode has to charge up, and then afterwards your guns have to charge.
Yeah, you gotta get back into that normal state before you could just take off and start fighting and defending yourself, right?
Yeah. I'm totally fit in that, and I think actually we should have more or less two things so you can balance your shield. So you can say, I want to focus on ballistics, decreasing the ballistic damage, because I think people that's come here is more likely to have that versus laser damage.
Can I stop you there? And this is a question I'm posing to you, but also to the Twitch chat, because I can't remember this at all. We know different materials are going to, like, different material types would defend against certain types of things. So, like, the situation that you mentioned here is more of, like, when armor comes in, we'll probably be able to have a better understanding of how all that will work. But are you going to be able to choose certain armors for your ships, or is it just the material that the ship is made out of? And based off of those materials, can you be like, hey, I want to defend against these kind of things and not those? I don't know if we have that much control.
I remember the sheet on armor correctly from back in 2013 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was so when you're repainting your hull with which would be your actually your new armor. So you were stripping away, more or less salvaging your current hull and then repainting it back with your new armor type. And the composition of your repaint would be determining what your armor would be. So that is how you should be able to say, I would be better protected against piercing
certain things.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that, if I remember it correctly, that was how it was described. But I don't know.
We don't know where they are with it now.
Yeah.
That's one of those things, like what we were talking with Virgil a little bit, is like, we know there's things in the works that solve some of the problems that we have, but we don't know the details on them. So so it's a weird one, but I don't know. Other people keep mentioning, like, get in your turret or AI blades,
but
things
if you're
like
a single seater,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's
the award
doesn't.
It doesn't work with that.
Yeah.
So we need a system that have to work with every single ship.
Exactly.
And there, simply the shields buffed would be the easiest of, I think, the most overreaching solution.
What about a handheld thing that you drop down? So it's not even a thing involved with the ship, but you have to pick it up before you can leave the bubble. Otherwise, it'll damage your ship. Something like that, maybe.
You have to pick it up, or it is outside the ship. So the person that wants to attack you have to land, pick it up, and then they can shoot your ship.
Okay.
That could also be one other thing I was thinking, that the outpost, instead of having the invincible bubble or amnesty zone, they could have a shield bubble where when you're flying through, maybe your shields has to be turned off or something like that.
Could be.
So every station would always have this shield bubble around it, and that is where racing shields was derived from if we have to tie it into the laws.
Yeah. I think the one thing that I always struggle with is like one of the biggest pain points with this issue is outposts. But the outposts we have now, I would imagine, are nothing like. Well, we know that they're nothing like what they're working on, right? They're showing all these kind of like little towns and things like that. Like, do we really think Jump Town is just going to be this one little building with nothing else around it? Do we really think that a mining outpost is going to look the way it is now? I feel like that there's so much missing from those locations as far as that stuff goes too.
That definitely is, but we have only seen the atmospherics as far as I remember. I haven't seen actual moon base outpost, more or less. Simply an outpost that isn't designed to be in, without any atmosphere.
Oh, I see. So instead of like one that would be on Earth, like every building has an airlock essentially, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I understand.
Or maybe every building is connected through tunnels or something like that. We haven't seen anything like that yet.
Yeah. I always like, what do you think about landing pads in the game?
They're useful for quick land and takeoff, but simply we're stuck in refueling areas, but they aren't good for protection.
Yeah. And so, it feels awesome to just like land on a pad outside and look at your ship as you're leaving it, right? So there's like I said it very early in the show, I think I said it in the beginning when I was just solo, was like Star Citizen was designed to look really cool, but they still haven't really worked on the like making it make sense thing.
The gameplays. So how do we made it look cool, but how do we make it fun?
Yeah, how do you make it work? It doesn't even have to be fun necessarily, it just has to work in some cases.
And how do we not give everyone and the other people a big advantage in this scenario? And that's pretty hard in Star Citizen.
Exactly, yeah.
If I can go back to the first point with your own shield being hardened, that could actually tie into battle as well. So if your ship got too damaged, you could actually harden your shields on a cargo plane, and now the attackers has to be simply have to board your ship and go in FPS combat. So that would be something for boarding parties.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to like I still think that they just want ships to be disabled and not blown up anymore.
Yeah, but this would be something you could put in between now and disable comment. And it would more or less just be when you increase power to shields, your shield to a this point, your shield would be buff X times.
But there would have to be a disadvantage.
The disadvantage, you couldn't fly, your all system is powered off.
Okay. So same as if you're landed, essentially.
It is exactly the same as if you're landed.
Yeah.
But your shield is just more or less impenetrable. Impenetrable.
I can't even say that word.
But that is why I think that is a good idea. Simply to buff them.
Okay.
But you have to turn off your engines, and these shields should probably then give you some drag. So when so that will help you slow down in case you were flying max speed. Oh, I'm just turning all my shields on now. No, you're getting stopped now.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
People can catch up and stop your spinning as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of where else. Do you have anything else that you wrote down or anything you wanna that sticks out to you?
Not much.
Okay.
I had something for landing pad, but I can't remember it right now. So yeah.
So what about, I guess, so we like stations are a thing. We think the solutions are, just starting a hangar. Do you agree, disagree with that?
Yeah, even though pets would be awesome to go out and go into, I don't see a reason to do it because you also need your personal hangars for the visualized cargo to be a thing.
Yeah, it's also very
Yeah.
weird to have a ship just appear out of nowhere. Also,
Yeah,
right?
it would be good if you maybe have a valet flying around if you
Yeah.
really want them.
Yeah, if you're gonna spawn something on a pad, it should fly in with an NPC or something.
Yeah.
What about the
Pets
idea? What about
Pets
just?
could. Oh, sorry. Place I think pets could work would be Outpost, like like Jumptown or something like that, where you actually need a place to land, and maybe your cargo isn't protected while you're transporting it.
Okay.
So that would be the places I could see
Yeah,
landing pads be really useful, and
where vulnerability is part of the
yeah,
gameplay, right?
exactly.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, there's places for it, and maybe there's places that aren't.
Yeah. You were talking about something else.
It's at the tip of my tongue. Hold on. Are we in agreement that the idea of like armistice, like we know they're gonna take them down, right? But like being invulnerable is not one of the solutions, or do you think there's situations where you should be?
I don't think there is a situation in SaltEMike you should be invulnerable.
Okay.
There should be areas that would be exceptionally hard to come into.
Mm-hmm.
With that should be impossible to come into with your guns turned on.
Okay.
They should have some system in the more or less that prevents you, but helps block you from. If you have it turned on, you're getting shot at.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Okay.
But otherwise, I don't think I have much more.
All right, Henrik. Well, that sounds good, and I appreciate it. I think you made some awesome points, and I'm glad school's almost over for you for the semester. Exciting.
I'm looking forward to get out and actually working.
Yeah, for sure. Wait, it's almost over.
Yes, it's
over. Congrats. Yeah, good luck with the job search soon.
Yeah.
All right, man.
And apartment and everything has to be.
Oh yeah. My little brother's going through that now.
Wish him luck.
Yeah. All right, Henrik. Be good, bud.
Be good.
Thank you so much. All right, and our next caller is Zohas. Zohas, can you hear me, bud? Muted right now.
Yep, I can hear you.
Awesome, Zohas. Yes, I hear you.
Okay, awesome. So how do I do it? Just jump into the topic?
Sure.
Okay. So I think, obviously, I agree with you. I think it is a problem, but I think that not all problems necessarily need active solutions.
Okay.
Because like a really important thing about like game design as a whole is like imbalance, like rough edges. It adds texture, and like that texture causes the player to adjust their play style. So like from the perspective of like using the bunker examples, right? You go into a bunker, you park your ship outside because you go inside to do something, and you come back and your ship's exploded. I think I ran into that problem like 2 or 3 times, and then I just started parking my ship like away from it, and I just take a buggy or like a rover from where I parked it to the bunker, and then I drive it away. So like that's kind of one of the examples where like there could be solutions that would prevent me from having to do that.
What if you have a single seater?
Well,
it's a solution for some ships, but not all.
Yeah, I think that's just part of the game. I think if you have a single seater, that's a concession that you have to make. That's something you have to consider when you're picking the mission that you want to do. You have to say, okay, I have to go down to a bunker. I have a mine is completely blanking on any single seater ships, but like I have this ship, I have an Aurora, so I know that I can't do X. Do I want to risk taking this mission? And I think trying to like smooth the edges so that you don't have to make those kind of considerations, I think that eliminates a lot of the emergent gameplay that could pop up. Which would, in my opinion, like obviously I don't speak for the entire community, but from my opinion, that would be a huge disservice to like what Star Citizen could be, which is this ball of rough edges that causes you to kind of like go in certain situations that you don't have the option to in other games. And I think like one of the biggest frustrations for me about Star Citizen is like a lot of people will describe it as two games, right? There's the game that we have, which is this, and then there's the game that it could be or that it will be. But I would actually posit there's like three different games, because there's a game that we have, there's a game that it will be, but there's also the game that it could be, which is like technology that they already actively have in place that could very easily get them to the point to where like they kind of solve some of the problems that you have. So I know one of the things you mentioned was like being able to see the ship or being able to like scan the ship to if you're like landed on a planet. Very, very easy to get around that. You just add background noise to planets or around bunkers so that you can't easily scan ships.
Yep.
Right. You come out, like you find out that your ship's being attacked. Have like, obviously we have the system in place where you can actually like request help from people by putting out like a service beacon, but just do like a bounty board where you can actively go and like, oh, this person is a bounty hunter or this person is like, I don't know, a law person. I can request them directly to come and help me because they posted up on the board. I help with these kind of situations. Similar to like, I think you were also talking about situations where like you have a crime stat and you want to go somewhere to get rid of the crime stat, but you're just by yourself. I think those kind of situations incentivize multiplayer gameplay, because if you have multiple people playing at the same time, there's never really going to be a situation where your ship could be left alone unless you actively choose to do that.
Okay. All good points. Obviously, it's not that easy to argue them, but at the same time, I think you're putting it in CIG's hands to be like, oh, well, yeah, here's a problem. Let's have CIG create the solution with the noise thing. Good idea, I think. I don't want to argue that. I just like it being more in our hands, so it's our fault, and it's very Star Citizen like to, oh, well, before I get out of my ship, let me change my power a little bit, and there's a buff and a debuff to that situation. Or when I get out of my ship, let me drop my handheld shield bubble to protect my ship, and if I don't do that, it's kind of on me. But then at the same time, maybe that has a very high signal boost so people can see me very far, right? Things like that.
Yeah,
I think
definitely
that's
agree
very
with that.
Star Citizen there. So like I'm not understanding where my solutions are taking away from the Star Citizen experience, and I would like to touch more on that, or have you clarify that for me a little bit more if you can.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. Like none of the solutions that you posited were bad solutions necessarily,
and neither are yours. So yeah,
like in my opinion, the best solutions to problems in games is tools that the players can use themselves.
Okay,
right?
Okay,
like you said, you want it to be on the player's head so that when my ship blew up because I didn't do X, that's a good feeling to have. Not I couldn't do anything in this situation. And having, like you said, like the bubble shield where you have to place it down on the ground outside your ship, and it gives off a really, really large signal so that you know you're going to be in and out 5 minutes. Okay, I'll drop this down because I know it's a good option.
Yeah.
If I know I'm going to be in there longer than 5 minutes, well, I don't want to risk someone seeing the signal, so I have to park my ship far away from the base, trek it in on foot, use, like you said before, the sheet to mask my CS signal so they can't actually like see the outline of the ship from space. And like giving player those options by using tools that are already in the game is like, in my mind, the best possible solution.
Yeah.
To
Exactly.
this
We
problem.
don't need them to sit down and design a whole new system to stop this, right? We need just use what we already have, and most of those things are already there. Okay, cool. So we're not as far apart as I thought we were. But the I always have a hard time though when players say, you know, this is a multiplayer situation, just go get your friends or whatever. I always feel like games I think games especially MMOs nowadays, do create situations where you're alone way too often, and games really should push you in the direction to play with players as often as possible. Trust me, I'm on the same page with you there. But at the same time, I think you should also give tools to players who don't want those, like, don't want to deal with the logistics of dealing with another player, and have the option to be able to do these things, but make it more difficult for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a balancing act. And then, like, the frustrating part is, like, my initial knee-jerk reaction is to just say, well, like, this is the game, right? If I'm playing Halo and I have people on my team who have comms and the other team doesn't have comms, like, they're just at a natural disadvantage, right? And I don't think there's really there's nothing that 343 should do to balance that around the people who don't have microphones.
Yeah.
I think that's just a concession that they have to make, that when you're playing the game, if you aren't in a party, you know that you'll be at a natural disadvantage. And
you just made me want to play Halo.
Oh, I mean, if they put out more maps or put out any new content, I would probably jump on. But similarly, right, in situations like this, specifically in MMOs, like, if you want to play the content solo, I think that should be a possibility. I don't think there should be any, like, gated content you can't do solo, like nothing like in WoW where you have to have 25 people to do the 25-man raid, right? I don't want anything like that in Star Citizen, but I definitely want it to feel very, very, like, again, rough edges. I want it to be very grating for you to be just like, oh, I can do this myself, but I know that if I pay someone to come and escort me, I can get this crime stat off really, really easily.
Yeah. Again, those are tools that the players use. It's very, very similar, but in a different way of explaining, like, giving players the tools to solve the problem themselves instead of CIG doing it for them.
Exactly. And, like, I would hate to be in a situation where CIG is feeling like they're forced to come up with a use case solution for every possible problem that people run into.
Yeah.
Instead of just being blanket tools that are like, this can be used in multiple situations.
Yep.
You guys figure it out. If we find something that is, like, really, really bad, then okay, we'll fix it. Like, similar to the landing pads, right? I don't think that, like, they should come up with a solution of having invulnerable ships on landing pads or anything like that. I think you just give players a choice. If you want to go and have, like, a vista view because you're above, I don't know, New Babbage, and you're like, oh, I want to get a really cool shot, choose to land on the pad. If you don't want to risk it because you have some good cargo or something like that, then have it put in a hangar. Just give the players a choice so that they can actually actively choose instead of just assigning them a random pad. And that's something that, again, is, like, in that middle ground where they can't actively do it right now. I don't see a reason why they couldn't very easily implement something like that.
Slightly off topic, but I think also incredibly on topic at the same time. Should there be advantages and disadvantages for choosing a pad over, like, you mentioned, like, taking a screenshot, like, oh god, so Star Citizen to mention that, but, like, from an actual gameplay standpoint, what would be the advantage of landing on a pad versus not landing on a pad? Obviously, like, me being able to take off a little bit quicker, but, like, what other reason maybe that comes to mind? I can't think of one, but maybe... I
mean, realistically, from like a gameplay perspective, it would be incredibly convenient to be able to just drop someone off at a landing pad and then go and do something else while they're doing whatever they need to do in the station.
Okay,
right?
sure.
If they're needing to run missions in the station, then again, like, this is all multiplayer crew, right? Because, like, at its core, I believe that Star Citizen is a multiplayer game, and most things should be viewed through the multiplayer lens. And if you try to view it through a single player lens, then I think you run into a situation where, like, there's this incompatibility that you just can't overcome.
I'm just thinking because, like, your scenario isn't really the problem that I have. Mine's the opposite. Is I'm at the ASOP terminal, I spawn my ship, and it just is on a pad sitting there waiting for me to walk to the elevator, wait for the elevator to come, press the button, the elevator rides over there, it takes 30 seconds, I get out, I wait for the door to open, I walk over to the ship, and by that time it's not only been disintegrated, but it's despawned, and I'm looking at, like, pieces of landing gear just sitting on the pad, you know?
Yeah, so, like, in this scenario, with my hypothetical, when you're at the ASOP terminal, you'd basically just choose, do you want to put it in a pad or a hangar? And just giving the player that choice, like, for most people, if you're in
but what would be the advantage of choosing a pad? Like,
I
if
don't
you
think
give
there's
them the
necessarily.
choice, maybe there has to be reasons why those choices exist. Otherwise,
Well,
get rid of pads
think
and get hangers. Or
I think the
whatever.
choice is an aesthetic choice, realistically. Like I know that
That's
everyone
sad.
likes to meme about. Well, I mean it is and it isn't, right? Everyone likes to meme about it because like Star Citizen is a photo taking simulator, but at the
Mhm.
same time, like there is this like visceral moment when you step out onto the landing pad
Mhm.
that you don't really get when you're in a hangar. And I think that like for some people, you won't obviously choose to go on a pad every single time, especially not if you're in an area that is known to have active people who are blowing up ships. But it is going to be a consideration that people will make. And for something as minor as like in this hypothetical future, we'll have like a perfectly balanced crime stat system so that people are incentivized not to blow up your ship on a pad, so that it is a very rare occurrence. And the times when it does happen, it's frustrating, but it's not grating,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, if I
And
haven't mentioned the crime stat thing, like they've talked about longer term reputation. You're having reputation with like Crusader, and if you get good rep with them, you're gonna lose rep with the Ninetales. So
I mean, I think you just go a step further where like if you're blowing up people's pads, blowing up ships on pads, then you just ban them from that station. And like eventually you'll just get banned from like that person's space. Like
yeah, I
the
think that's how it
reputation
would work.
system, yeah, the reputation system, like again, it adds those rough edges to incentivize people to not do those kind of griefing things. It still gives them the option. And I think even with something as small as that, where they're like, I could blow this person up, but then I'll never be able to land at Port Tressler again.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's enough to disincentivize easily like 99% of the people who are already doing it. And it's already a very small number. So you might run into a situation where it might happen like a handful of times. But even in those situations, I think that's kind of something that people will chalk up to like, well, it happens. I went on the pad because I knew it would happen. It's like a 1 in a million shot. It happened this time. That's frustrating.
Yeah.
But it's not happening every single time.
Okay. Trying to think of any other things that we talked about and where to lead us now, but I don't have anything that's popping to my mind at the moment. I think you make really good points, and you really thought about this, which is nice.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty sure you typed in chat that your ideas were not going to be very good, or they were like basic or something, right?
Well, it was lukewarm. Like these aren't really
lukewarm.
like they're not really like hot takes. They're not really cold takes. They're more like the problems will eventually solve themselves if CIG can just implement the tools properly. Which I mean, that's like flip a coin, and we'll see if that happens.
Like I think at times they over complicate things.
They definitely do, and that's a huge fear of mine. Is that like obviously obviously your frustrations are valid. I don't want to like discredit what your frustrations are. But a fear that I have is that because people so often complain about certain things in the game, CIG is incentivized to change things that don't necessarily need to be changed.
Yeah, that's why at the beginning I hope strongly pointed out that I understand the game is in an alpha state. I understand that this is not a solution that needs to be fixed now. It's just a conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah, definitely. And like to bring it like a step, like zoom out more, I don't even think it's necessarily an issue of like, oh, this game is an alpha. I think it's more of like a frustration that people will have, like more of like, I guess using this as just one of the examples of like multi-crew as a whole. Because there are a lot of people who have invested a lot of money in this game, invested a lot of effort into this game, and they're probably going to try to play the game solo. And like for those people, like I don't think CIG should be trying to bounce around them. Just because it puts CIG in such a difficult position to try to balance a game around people who are playing solo and also people who are playing as groups. I don't think you can make it necessarily like equally fun for both. There's going to have to be one experience that is like suffering so that the other one can actually feel like they're getting a really, really good experience. And I would want CIG to lean towards, multi-crew as the actual end all be all, because I think for most people, that's the actual dream.
Okay. I always get comments when I say exactly what you said at the end, which is not what most people may be thinking. It's what you are thinking. And a lot of people make that comment for me, and I'm going to make that one for you. I think these are the things that you really value in the game, but I know that there are plenty of people that don't value multi-crew as much as you may. I do. I think it's very important, but I absolutely, and this is very off topic, so we'll probably I'll obviously let you respond to me, but then after that we should either move on to something else or whatever. the idea of them not developing around a solo experience, I agree. It shouldn't be this is the solo experience and this is the multi-crew experience. But I think that should always be in mind when designing anything. Is that I do think. And I also kind of disagreed when you brought up the WoW raid kind of scenario. I think there are some experiences that you should absolutely not get unless there should be some very difficult things to do that require multiple people to take part in. But I do think that you should be able to experience mining, and I think CIG is kind of directly contradicting everything you're saying, right? Because you can experience mining as a solo player with an ROC or a handheld tool. You can experience salvage with your handheld tool, right? So you can't experience it in the full scope of the game. You don't get the full Star Citizen experience without multi-crew, but you can experience Star Citizen as a solo player.
Yeah, definitely. I might have misspoke, or I might have not conveyed what I was.
Yeah, it sounded like
properly.
You were very much like Star Citizen is a multiplayer game. I think because you even said the word suffer, right? Is that a solo player should suffer, and very much like to bring it on topic is this is a situation where solo players suffer, and it is mostly a solo player problem, mostly.
Yeah, I don't mean to say that like single player should be a consideration. I don't think that they should be the focus. Is basically what I was saying.
Okay.
If you're designing like content around single players, then your consideration that you make is very different than if you're designing it around like multiplayers. Yeah. And the fear is that because a lot of people in the community want to play the game solo and they're very, very vocal, the fear is that CIG will do things that like don't make sense in a multiplayer game. That's all I was saying. Not necessarily that like single player should pack it up and go to find another game. I absolutely think that like the game as a whole doesn't work unless you have people who are playing solo, but you need to have them understand where their place fits into it and not understand that like you won't be running an Idris solo, right? Like no matter what pipe dreams you have, you might be able to fly it solo. You might be able to fly it solo and you might be able to pay for a bunch of crews and stuff, but like I don't know how to break it to you, but you're not going to be able to have the full experience solo.
But wait, I spent $1,500 on that ship, and I was expecting to command an NPC crew. I'm confused.
Buy some friends. That's all I got to say.
Oh damn. Well, if I can afford an Idris, I can probably afford to buy a few friends. So.
You can probably afford to buy a few friends. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I don't know. Is there anything else that you like maybe wrote down or maybe you want to talk about specifically on the topic?
I just had three bullet points that I wrote down. We kind of went over those. So yeah,
awesome.
I think I'm covered.
Awesome, Zohas. Thank you for coming on. I thought like really well spoken, and I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Awesome. Yeah, no problem. All right, guys. Our next caller is going to be Vulcan. Vulcan, can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. I hear you loud and clear. So, obviously, you're coming in the middle here a little bit, and a lot of people have spoken. What are kind of your feelings on the topic and everything? And
I mean, obviously, there's been plenty of good points brought up. It's not a simple issue, and it requires a lot of changes, small changes and bigger changes in various ways and systems. But yeah, it's mostly going to be up to the CIG people to correctly implement them and fine tune them in the long run. Yeah. But I guess what I could add that hasn't been discussed already is the actual design of these locations themselves that aren't quite, I don't think, up to the standard they should be for these kinds of missions. For example, Jumptown is, as far as I've seen, just your standard little mining area that you see throughout the game, and it's not really designed in a way that supports like a big PvP event like that. Like, for example, if we take one of those big locations we've seen teased in Squadron 42, for example, you'd see like these huge caverns and huge complexes that you have multiple locations to land on, for example, which would give players more opportunities to land and land solo and do the missions stealthily and approach the area without having to trek, for example, 2 kilometers. I think that's one way that CIG could solve the issue. But right now, it's pretty much what the other people suggested. Land your ship far away in a way to avoid getting shot down. It's the only thing we can do at the moment to minimize the risk of losing your ship.
Do you feel there should be like armistice stones should stay, or do you feel there should be points of invulnerability? Or
I mean, I support the standard opinion. I disagree that there should be zones that the players are invulnerable. I think that the armistice zones have a place, but in like probably a more secure area or high security areas like Stanton, for example, you should be more friendlier to new players. But like in dangerous areas like Pyro, for example, they have no place there, of course.
yeah,
But again, it's something that CIG has to tweak in a way that it's not unfriendly to like every player. So you should have every player should have the chance to leave a station in some way that requires skill and their experience to leverage.
okay. I do think that like the first caller, there's scenarios where if you want to be the guy who locks down a station, that you should be able to for a little bit, and you should cause
Definitely.
the trouble
But
you want to cause.
it'll take more than one person probably to do it, and that's
Yeah,
an
sure.
issue on its own, a challenge on its own.
Yeah,
And
because that's how he sees it. Is this is a challenge.
exactly, yeah.
So let me think. What about when you're out of your ship, ways to defend it? I think we have the railgun now. It's somewhat effective against some ships in some scenarios. You have the missile launcher. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think definitely the thing you mentioned. I think that the first caller mentioned is the FPS radar. Just giving the defending player a stealth advantage is probably one of the best ways to improve it. And I think CIG is already working on it. Just giving the player on foot maybe some better ways to hide and ambush the attacker and just react before the attacker has a chance to inflict some damage. But of course, it's always going to be difficult if you're taken by surprise by the enemy to really save yourself. If you're already in a bad spot on like a flat piece of land in an open area, it's always going to be tough to defend.
Yeah.
In that
Should
case,
that
you're pretty much screwed.
Yeah, so like in a lot of ways, do you feel that imbalance should be there? Should the game try to bring them closer together, or do you think it's somewhat like, hey man, you're just a player, you shouldn't be able that easily to destroy a ship outside of it, right? Like part of it that doesn't make a whole lot of sense is that in a lot of ways a railgun blows up a ship easier than a ship versus a ship does sometimes.
Oh yeah, I think that's the point where the disabling versus completely destroying should come in more, where we should be able to, for example, the defender doesn't outright kill the enemy, but he at least can give him like a scare or something, so he thinks twice before continuing to attack.
He gives himself a chance. I think as a player in these situations, you just want to be given a chance. Where
Exactly,
I don't know how you feel at the moment. I don't think we have one.
Yeah, definitely, because the current state is still very much early alpha. You know that better than most people. It's right now again. The best you can do is really just try and hide out and call, call someone to pick you up, or. But yeah, that again takes a bit more time right now than just killing yourself. Yeah, a lot of solutions for these problems will probably come, but yeah, it's gonna take time, sadly.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I don't think CIG should make like any grand changes, because I don't think I think most of the solutions are kind of here in the game for us now. It's just little tweaks and giving us a bit more control where they can. I don't know how you feel about that. If anything, should be left alone, or they should touch on more things and spend more game development time on
I'm pretty
these
sure
things.
they're going to touch on a lot of things again and again, probably.
Yeah.
I hope they do, because I think every feature can be improved in some way.
Sure.
And probably will be, but yeah. Until then, it's for us to complain on the forums and scream about every issue, so they notice it, and that's, I think, the most important thing we have to do. We just have to keep screaming about it, and eventually they'll fix it.
Do you see this as one of those issues worth screaming about?
Yeah, definitely, but yeah, it all depends. Like, I think right now the focus should be mostly on just getting the multiplayer, the server meshing and all that stuff worked out. And they're working on it. I'm sure they'll present it in some way in the near future. But yeah, definitely, it should be something that we talk about, and like we are right now.
Okay, cool. I don't know. I guess is that where we leave it, Vulcan, or is there anything else that's on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk too much because I want to leave some ideas for the rest of the guys.
Okay.
So yeah,
right,
I'm gonna go back to watching F1.
Oh, hey, don't spoil it. I haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna watch it later after
right.
the show. Enjoy.
Yeah,
bye.
See you, man. Bye.
Go McLaren. Chosen Link, welcome to the show. I don't know. Have you ever called in before, Chosen?
Hey, Mike. Yeah, one time, I think.
One time?
I had a mic a long time ago.
You had a bad mic, you said?
Yeah, I was picking up like my VR mic from across the room, and everyone thought I was in a cave.
Well, you sound great now, so.
Okay.
What do you got on this topic today, and how do you feel about things? 2 words.
Hover
that's
mode.
It. Okay.
Nah, I'm just joking. Hover mode is such a meme. I just love to meme about it. But
yeah.
Yeah. So a bit more, I guess, imagine oriented. I think the station problem is pretty much solved. I think there's enough things out there that stations, even if you do have pads on stations, it shouldn't be an issue. Just beef up the defenses and that's it. And I do think pads are important for the sort of the beginner first impression, first time playing experience. Because I mean, I'm sure everyone remembers the first time you loaded up the game, you spawned your ship in PO, you walked out, and then you see Stanton. Like, that's amazing. You see your ship, there Stanton, you see other ships. I mean, that alone, just for that alone, I think pads should still be there. But that's not really what I want to talk about. I want to talk about more about the planet locations. You said like the perfect example of you land, you go to an underground bunker, you land your ship, it gets blown up.
Yeah.
I think environments, and I think CIG is doing this already. They're gonna do complete reworks of all the environments, in a sense that so I think planets need more background noise to hide infrared, EM, and CS.
Okay.
I mean that's one way. Right now, I think the environments around locations are too barren. I think like Microtech is sort of getting there, where you kind of had these foresty areas around the landing zones. I think they could use a bit more environmental variety, so that if your ship gets blown up, it's essentially your fault for not hiding it. I guess going back to, I guess, detecting your ship. I think right now, personally, scanners might be too strong, especially for like fighters.
Yeah.
In the sense that, more reworks. Sorry, I should close. I should close the chat.
Yep.
So I personally, I think scanners are a bit too strong right now, especially on fighters. We're supposed to have dedicated scanning ships, and ships that have stronger radar scanners, like the Cutlass Red, the Terrapin, the Carrack. such that when there's a ship, when you're in a solo ship and you're landed on a planet, it should be difficult to be able to detect that ship, similar to what they already did to ground vehicles. There are other games that do this, like completely other games. I mean, the example that comes to mind is I think Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. There's a perk if you're flying a ship, if you're low enough to the planet or to the surface of the map. There's this perk called below radar where it becomes difficult or impossible to be detected or shot at. I think something like that needs to be
whether you're
done.
in the ship or flying, or is that only when it's on ground?
Both.
Yeah. That doesn't work.
I mean, basically, it should be difficult for you to get a lock on and target a ship that's landed on the surface.
Yeah, as long as like you can't use the like arcade ass Battlefield solution.
Yeah. I shouldn't have brought that up. I know.
No, you can as long as it's only applied to when it's landed.
Yeah, it should only be applied to Theaters of War, not Star Citizen. But
I think it should only be applied to when a ship is landed. Period. But
yeah, sure. But yeah, I think so. Yeah, there's a lot of different directions where this could go. I'm trying to one, wake up and to try to formulate things a bit better. I think so I think a scanning nerf on surfaces should be fine.
The closer you get to the surface, the less effective things are, maybe, or certain
targeting,
certain
scanning.
radars, ship radar scanning.
Yeah, it should be more difficult, and I don't think there shouldn't be any complaints, especially with the PvP guys, because Star Citizen is a space game. You do fighting in space, and you could expect these radars, targeting systems to work perfectly in space. But when you're on a surface, it should be a whole different ballgame. That's sort of my opinion.
Well, I think, okay, I agree with that, and I think that they would complain in the way that you're phrasing it, is the idea of, well, if a ship is flying around and using afterburners and their weapons are hot and all those things, like, obviously that should, like, even though you might be really close to the surface, although I think that they would really like low flyers would love this, right? Is that would have an effect. But, like, if you're a little bit, I don't know, I think CIG could probably create numbers where if you're at 500 meters above the surface or lower, then the signal that you give off in most single-seater or whatever ships will be below the floor that the planet is giving off. But in general, I think if you're, afterburning and doing all these other things, probably you should be able to be targeted. But man, that would be very skillful, and I think that would be kind of just a generally very cool solution to the game. One person that I know for sure is a low flyer was just typing in chat and said already has an effect on IR signature closer to Daymar, less IR signature you have. So they could just take that to another level and really make the game
increase that IR, EM, CS, well, just IR and EM. CS would be more like obstacles on the environment, like Pyrotech. You could hide your ship behind a forest. You could walk into a bunker, but then that kind of involves reworking the environments to make it more dense.
If there's a storm.
Exactly. And I don't think storms do anything other than cosmetic. Well, other than cosmetic and them making your ship float away. So there's already a lot of systems in the game where it's possible. You just need to, or CIG just needs to tie them in together. And that's one, well, the word problem. That's one problem I have with the game where you have all these systems. I don't want to get into it too much, but you have all these different systems that are separate from each other, but they just need to be tied in together some way. And someone just needs to dedicate time to tie them in together. Like you said, the storms. There's storms on Microsat. They already do some stuff with your ship, but they do nothing with IR, EM, CS. Like why doesn't that happen?
Yeah.
Why hasn't anyone thought of this? But
I'm sure they have. It just like with like a billion things with Star Citizen,
right,
they've thought about it. They've had these they may have already had this conversation that we're having now. I've just never really heard it mentioned from them. So a lot of things are planned, a lot of things have been thought about, and a lot of things don't happen because Squadron 42, because XYZ, you know.
Sure.
So there's always that. So that's why, again, like, this is just worth having the conversation over. I don't think it's the thing that as a creator or as a player or a backer, we should be poking and saying that this needs to absolutely be fixed now. It's just a conversation that's absolutely worth having, I think.
Yeah, so other than that, there are other things. I guess there's more imagine-oriented things where, I mean, if you could have gameplay-oriented systems where, just a second.
I heard your phone. do. I'll play music while we wait. Boop 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 boop. Doop. Cat jam. But
sorry, FYI, that was my alarm. So that's usually the normal time I get up at.
Okay. Well, we're pretty close.
Yeah. So, sorry. Yeah, going back to gameplay systems. So, everyone always talks about emergent gameplay. So, you want to incentivize people to not blow up ships, so that if someone lands and it gets blown up, it's essentially your fault in a way. So you've incentivized a pirate or a bounty hunter enough for them to blow your ship up. So one way to do this is, so the scenario I have in mind is sort of bounty hunting. So if you're going to go bounty hunt someone and they went into a bunker, their ship is landed next to the bunker. Why not get paid for not blowing up the ship? I mean, maybe CIG could have like an impound system where if you take down your bounty and you're sort of a lawful bounty hunter, you should be able to call in like an impound on the ship and you should get paid for it.
Okay.
And the more expensive parts are on the ship, the more you get paid. That's one way of dealing with things.
Sure.
Another way could be, say you're not lawful, you're a pirate. You still don't want to blow up the ship. So this is where sort of salvage comes into play. So you want to keep the ship intact. You take out the person, you steal their ship, and you can go salvage it. And the caveat being, if you blow their ship up, everything goes, the components just go to trash. So in that way, you want to never blow up the ship. You want to always salvage it, take the components out, and deal with it that way instead of just blowing it up.
Okay, can we stop there for a sec? I still think that scenario is essentially the same as blowing up the ship, unless the tools to fix the damaged stuff are like, the tools to fix the damaged things are readily available to you, like very easily, but it's the process in which fixing it is the time-consuming or tactile or gameplay element of it, right? So if you disable my ship, because like if we go back all the way back to the scenario of I'm at the bunker, you blow up my ship, but I kill you, so I actually win the fight, like I won the scenario but end up losing anyway, is that if you disabled my ship and I come back and actually kill you in the FPS scenario, but then I have to go back and repair my ship, as long as that's like a relatively reasonable thing to do, I agree with you. But if not, and it's like very difficult, then I
mean,
I don't know if I do.
I'm not sure. That's not what I really had in mind. What I had in mind was more whoever the aggressor is, give them an incentive to not blow your ship up. Either monetary, reputation, say if you impound a vehicle, you get more reputation as a bounty hunter, for example, because it should take a lot more effort to keep the vehicle intact. Therefore, you want to leave it intact to then impound it and turn it in.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna to argue against that. That's for sure. I love the idea of the, like, part of the bounty is to impound the ship.
Yeah,
and
it's
sort
of
worth more together than it is in pieces.
Yeah, and that's more of a let's say a pacifist route, where if you want to be like a like goody two shoes bounty hunter and you'd never want to kill, that would be one way of sort of going about things.
I mean, dude, I wouldn't even consider it like that. I think it would just be considered you would just be a better bounty hunter. You would gain more reputation. You would, it would be part of the thing. I can take you in cold or I could take you in warm. Yeah, I could do both, but one is worth more than the other.
Yeah, and on top of that, I had sorry, I did take some notes, so I can't find them because they're behind a few windows somewhere. But
I think like physical windows for some reason. I'm just as tired as you are, by the way.
I have a bunch
how
of
do your notes end up
tabs
behind a window? Yeah, I
have a bunch of tabs and I have Lost Ark open, so it's
gotcha.
Lost Ark Andy.
Like most people, just addicted to that game.
Yeah.
How much have you spent on Lost Ark versus Star Citizen?
Like $15.
Oh, not bad. Okay,
that's it. Just the premium.
Nice,
but that's it. So yeah, on the topic of I guess not blowing ships up, I also wanted to mention, and I think CIG mentioned before, that eventually there's going to be more less than lethal stuff in the game.
Yeah,
where it in sort of the topic of being a better bounty hunter, when CIG provides more tools to the player for them to say less than lethal take down somebody, then that will inherently incentivize not to blow ships up more.
Yeah.
And I know there's already distortion weapons right now in the game. There should be some capability, something in the game that should let you just disable a ship and it to be disabled physically, and say maybe like there's already gadgets in the game, mining gadgets in the PTU. Maybe there's like a disable gadget where you use distortion, you disable a ship, you land on the planet, you take your gadget out, you put it on the ship, and it disables the ship. That way, that forces the user in the bunker, the player in the bunker, to come out and physically take off. Yeah, well, yeah, like EMP, but it's more of a permanent EMP. It's like
as long as it's attached to the ship, as long as there's a solution to stop it once.
Yeah. So you have to physically remove it, and it should be like an easy removal thing. You just take it off your ship. But that forces the player to come out of the bunker, have a 1 versus 1 versus X fight, like FPS fight, to be able to I guess turn your ship back on to get back.
Which is the whole point of the scenario, anyway, right? The reason the bunker is a bunker and the reason you're there is to take everybody out of the ship. And that's like why this is still Star Citizen's biggest flaw, is because it doesn't effectively do that yet. The whole thing is to get people like out of their ships in that scenario and fighting in FPS. And then, whoever wins, you end up back in your ship and you leave. And maybe you do, salvage their ship, whatever. I think the other idea is like, you mentioned Battlefield, the idea of combined arms and things like that. We saw a lot of that at Jumptown. I thought Jumptown was really successful and in a lot of ways shifted development towards the ground vehicles having lower signatures to make it even more fun and to make that combined arms more effective, right? Yeah, I mean, Jumptown gave me chills, so it's and I think that they could do a lot more with things like that. And I think this is the one scenario right now that it doesn't work.
Yeah, like if CIG had to do something tomorrow, and they probably could, they could just turn up the signatures of planets on surfaces, and I think that would be enough.
Yeah, it just has to be really, really well thought out and tuned, so that because how shit would this be, right? Is that you're chasing somebody or you're fighting on a planet, and all you do is just fly down, and then the lock is like constantly on and off and on and off. So it would take a lot of like really close paying attention to. But I agree. I think that's like one of those things that can be done now to make it really interesting and kind of solve a little bit of the problem that we have. Again, once you physically see the ship with your eyes, which does take quite a bit of time to get down to, the scenario breaks again a little bit. But then that's where like further development down the line towards like, putting a blanket over it or, being a little further away or whatever,
Just not being 50 kilometers or 50,000 kilometers, 100,000 kilometers from the planet, you're doing a ping and you instantly see all the things light up. Like if you're mining somewhere, and like you should be shielded somewhat by the planet.
Yeah.
Such that you don't just get pinged and targeted 100,000 kilometers from space, and they just sort of pinpoint you and just size 9 torpedo you to death.
Playing devil's advocate here, how do we find each other then?
CIG introduces a new scanning ship.
True. I think it might be the...
I said scanning, right? So yeah, just...
the long distance probing, maybe.
Yeah, long distance probing, scanning ships. I mean, there's already dedicated scanning ships. You want to give roles to these ships that are underutilized, like the Terrapin. How many times have you seen the Terrapin? I've personally, for like all the few years I've played in SC in the PU, I've never seen a Terrapin ever. I've only seen it in the showroom.
I think that's why they tried to use it at Ninetales to like be a thing, and yeah, it's like still not a thing.
Yeah, just I mean, in a sense, you're sort of creating a problem and giving a solution, but I guess that's not really new to CIG in terms of like new ships. Yeah. So they make a problem and they offer you a solution. But I think that's a good way. Like you introduce, I guess, scanners are supposed to be swappable at some point. I know some ships when you scan them, you could see what type of scanner they have.
This is one of those where like, we just don't know what's coming when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, just have different types of scanners in the PU. If you want to be able to detect ships, buy a better scanner. And maybe there's a trade-off of scanners are going to take up more power. So you're not going to be able to load out, like say your one-seater fighter with this OP build because your scanner is taking up too much power. Yeah. So you're trading the ability to detect ships with firepower directly. Yeah. And hopefully that somehow that gets balanced right, because right now you just pick the best power plant and you're set for everything, which is kind of OP, but yeah.
We'll see. I think there'll be a lot of cool stuff to investigate at sometime in the future, but yeah. I don't know. I think you made a lot of cool points that were not brought up by others too, which was cool.
Yeah, and that'll give a purpose to the Carrick. That's the research ship, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
The scanning capabilities of the Carrick,
could be. I mean, I want to see the Terrapin like get some love. Not gonna lie. But all right, Chosen. I don't know. Is there anything else that you have in your notes behind all your windows, or is it time?
Yeah, it's time for Lost Ark. So yeah, that's it.
All right, bro.
Back to Lost Ark.
Enjoy. Right, have some fun. We'll talk to you later.
Later.
Bye. All right. Next up is Lockups. I always call you Lockups, but it's Lockups. Lock. How you doing, man?
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, you're a little low. I'll turn you up. Okay. You might have to turn yourself way up.
You hear me now? Okay.
Oh, I hear myself.
You yourself way up. You hear me now? Okay.
Oh, I hear myself. You gotta turn speakers off, Lock. I can't. Yeah, we can't do it with the speakers. So I'm gonna bring in the next caller and try and deal with that situation, headphones, headset, something like that, and I'll bring you in next. Okay, so we're gonna bring in Scarlet in the meantime. Scarlet, can you hear me?
Yo, what up?
What
you hear
up?
me?
I hear you just fine. Yeah, I'm. Let me bring your name and picture onto the screen here because I wasn't quite ready for you. All right, yeah. So another PvPer here. Is there?
Yeah.
I think after the PvP conversation is kind of when you popped in. I'm just gonna give you the floor here and rock and roll.
Yeah, it's like a very important topic for me because I have been a solo player for
Yes.
very much 5 years.
You're the first person I
And
think of when people kind of turn off the idea of solo players.
yeah, and also these 5 years have been as a criminal. So
Yep.
I know that other side of being like the villain of the movie. And I'm one of that person that is convinced that this game will not last 1 month if this PvP issue don't get balanced. Because my take on this topic is that it's way too easy for a single player to ruin other people's experience.
Yes.
This comes from somebody that is like, it's a fucking PvPer.
Yeah.
Like, it's way too easy. And from my perspective, one of those reasons is one, the PvP year right now is way too accessible. Like, you only have to go to the RSI store, buy the top dogfighter for $90, go to any city and buy a bunch of guns, grind a couple of missions, and your ship is full gear. And you have aim assist and a bunch of like tutorials to like literally in an hour, you're gonna be ready to kill anybody.
Yep.
There is not
Especially
much
if their ship is just sitting there.
Yeah. There is very low requirements to like for right now to PvP because you don't spend too much like grinding that gear too. Like everything is right there. Reputation doesn't matter too much.
Yet.
And the worst thing is the law system. Like we as a criminals, we don't fear the consequences.
Yep.
Like,
and, like
you
the
can
whole
tell me
idea.
jail.
The whole idea that drives me nuts about the whole scenario, even when Virgil brought it up, was that defenses at a station only matter if you have the criminal rating in the first place. But it's so easy to remove that if you decided you wanted to be a bad actor, you would just remove the crime stat and go to the place with full ability to do whatever you want, and you can do that act again. And it's that simple. And by the time the station even recognizes that you have a crime stat, you've already done the deed and ruined somebody else's time.
Exactly. Like right now, in 3.16 and in 3.17, we found a bunch of new metas that actually allow you. I mean, for example, there's one that allow you to kill a ship on any station without even getting crime stat, getting hostile, or going to jail. Like I can blow up your ship in a path and don't get any punishment.
Yeah.
And I built some metas where I can just open your ship on Everus, go inside, steal it, and do whatever I want with your ship. Like, and you can do it right now in 3.17. Like, there's a bunch of blind spot in the station, like in Everus, what we do. Like, you might think, like, this guy is going to go and shoot the ships on Everus, and then he will need fuel. He will need to rearm because he's getting missile spam all the time. So he, at some point, he's going to leave. But we literally are blowing up the two turrets on each landing pad, and we can hover on top of the pad, repair and refuel, and we can stay there all day if we want. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The station need like a little bit more to be a little bit more strong defenses. But
Do
I
you,
think
do
the
you
main
think
problem has.
do you think a lot of it's just like server tick rate and stuff too? Like they might be relatively strong, but they don't
It
hit you
might
as
be the
easily.
server tick rate because you join a fresh server and you go to a bunker and you get obliterated by any turret. So
Yeah.
I think it's a server thing.
Okay. Yeah, so
Um,
I think when it comes to stuff like that, I always like kind of want to just hold off on any additional development to those areas of the game because I think we just need to wait and see in a lot is like
Exactly.
is this defense enough? Probably. But down at a bunker where there really aren't any other than a few turrets there at the ground and even then doing a little flyby is usually enough to handle the situation. I mean, let's look at just like a bomber, right? Coming by. We all saw those at Jumptown and how easily they destroyed ships on the ground and there really is nothing, there's no defense behind it. It's tough. It's
I suffer a lot with that because like I have a current at 5 all the time. So if I want to do a bond mission on the ground, like I know my ship is not gonna be there then next time I go up.
Yep.
And that forced me to like play in a more like full way of playing the game. Like I have to rely on other players right now to play the game.
But you don't want to necessarily, do you? I know you prefer the
I
solo
don't have
life.
a problem.
Okay.
No, I don't have a problem. Like I love the player interaction, and that's why I use a lot the beacon system. Like I use it a lot. And that's one of the things that I always commend with like the people that go and talk with me. Like you have to be ready to lose in this game.
Yeah.
Because in this game you cannot control the scenario all the time. So you have to be always ready to take the L. Like what I do a lot of times to like get that interaction is I escape jail, take the Ursa rover and go to an outpost that is like 10 kilometers away to bait bounty hunters to try to kill them and steal their ships. But when this doesn't happen, I'm forced to like make a beacon.
Yeah.
So I will role play from the escape with somebody else. Like I don't know this guy.
Yeah.
I will make a beacon, like a transport beacon, and get pick up. And I do it all the time. And it's the same. Like I think we should get used to like work a little bit more together and reinforce the system because they're very good. They're very good systems, but sometimes some people can exploit them a little bit too much to use the wrong thing, like saying.
Okay.
But also it would be cool that, for example, you can make beacons to call NPCs. Like you don't necessarily have to call a player.
Yeah.
Maybe you can call an NPC. Could be an NPC to repair your ship. Could be an NPC to transport you somewhere. And they were working on that, like how to make like AI flying planets and all that thing. So it would be cool that you can also have that option. Like you don't
like
necessarily need to deal with players.
The systems aren't bad. They just are badly implemented isn't the right way. It's the everything's like I how do I phrase this? You are one of the people that I admire the most when it comes to Star Citizen and even just like streaming and things like that for the game, because you're absolutely willing to do the most annoying, longest wait thing just because it's the right thing to do in that, like, I will bait a bounty hunter down to steal his ship instead of just backspacing. But I would say like 99% of the population doesn't have the patience and strength that you do. But I also don't think because of that we should just flip the switch and make it too easy. Right? So that's where I'm with you 100%, is the systems that are there are good. We just need to give access to them a little bit more to the players. A little bit easier to access them. Am I on the same page with you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically reinforce it because not many people know about the beacons too. Like And
That's true.
not many people, like, it's not the first like idea, like, okay, I'm stranded, what do I do? Backspace. And some people doesn't even know about the beacons.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if they
should
even
be
want them to. Because they're just like
I
not
wonder
done with
if
them, and they're just like, all right, we'll get back to that another time.
I mean, some people doesn't pay too much for like getting picked up. Like when I'm getting picked up by Yale, I mean from Yale, I pay very good, and
Yeah.
we have always a lot of money. So why don't pay good to somebody that's literally gonna save me a lot of trouble, right?
Yeah.
But some people literally put beacon for 5K. Nobody's gonna do that. You have to also be aware that there is an economy, and all the people is like grinding 100K USC in a mission. So you have to go up on the standards to like to get like the attention from somebody, at least for now, because as long as like player beacons, you have to do it like this.
Why do you pay for somebody to pick you up versus just doing a little mining or a few missions down there? Is it usually because they were like broken and not working, or because you find it more fun?
Because I find it more fun.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I love the player interaction. I love to like find a random player and do something with them. Like the other day, there was a guy on Everus, and the guy's like, "Dude, I died going to Horizon. I don't want to drive. Can you drive me there?" And we went to Horizon in my 100i, and we were talking about some random shit until I took it there. Like I love that thing.
Yeah, I love that
Like,
too, and I don't know why I don't attempt that more. I think it's usually because I'm so limited on time. It makes it hard.
yeah,
Because
like
you want
I
the
go to
interaction
any
to last until the interaction's over.
yeah. I literally just go to any like lobby on Grimex, and I start to like say hi to everybody until somebody answers, and from there something builds up. Like that's
Yeah.
it.
Okay. I need to do that more.
But
You're inspiring me.
yeah, I learned a lot of that from other streamers like Coconut B and Life Stomper.
Okay.
They're streamers that play Rust,
Yes.
and they're very good PvPers.
Yeah.
Like these guys will kill you in any situation. But they also like they see the value on like trying to interact with people before just fragging. Like
Yeah.
fragging is fun, but the player interaction or the moment that you can build up from player to player interaction is so much more valuable that they first put that in the line. Like I want to get player interaction before I frag, and I try to do the same. Like I try to do as much as possible. Try to interact with people before I frag.
I mean, is Star Citizen's biggest flaw like in a lot of ways resolved by fixing the ability to communicate with each other and make it a lot easier? Because right now it's still a little difficult, I'd say, right?
Yeah. But
we're
I
getting
think,
there
like,
though. I think VoIP works way more consistently now than it has in the past.
Yeah, but I'm still very scared about like how the criminal system is so exploitable and easy to like put aside, and that's the main problem on a lot of like PvP MMO games. That when it's not solved, like these games like die so quick because PvP became such a problem in these games that nobody wanted to play it because everybody can do with your time whatever they want. Like right now, I've encountered myself a lot of times. For example, the river. Let's talk about the river situation.
Okay, because
The
this
river,
situation
go to the
happens
river.
there a lot, is what I hear.
It's literally people in gladius and talons just flying on top, and they stay all day if they want over there. And sometimes I kill some of these like PvP players, and you literally go and check the corpse that is on the ship wreckage, and it's a guy that is literally on the medical gun. Like these guys are not even wearing gear on top of them, and they're doing all this shit. And I think that's a big problem. Like, how do you force these people to like like have more inconvenience because all they do is like sit on a ship and they do all they want. Like, where is the other part of the game? Where is like the consequences for doing this?
For doing what? Like, what do you mean by sitting in the ship, just hanging out? Like, what's wrong with looking at the river? Why should there be
Not looking
consequences
the river.
there?
That blowing up people in the river all day.
Oh, okay. So these
They
are
can
people
stay
that are.
for hours there.
Yeah, I understand.
They never have to go and refuel. They never have to like go on the ground to drink some water. They can stay in their ship like forever if they want. Like
This
that's
is
why
ships that are not single player, not solo ships, right? Because the ones with
Yeah.
interiors are the
No.
only ones that they could do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Like how to make these players that are always on a ship on the advantage to go on foot and take
Yeah.
some risk.
Yeah.
Because like that's the other point when I do these things in jail, like 90% of the time when I'm waiting with this crime path 5 in this shelter for these PvPers to come and kill me, it's literally people that doesn't have gear and they stay for hours on top of the shelter, shooting the shelter to try to kill me.
Yep. Just shooting
fucking
into the door,
ridiculous.
right?
Like they don't get off their shit for nothing. And they are just pointing the goddamn building, just shooting.
Yeah.
Like
And-
how we deal with that.
Yeah, and that's a big part of this whole conversation, right? Is it's not just the your ship is vulnerable when you're outside of it, but it's that complete advantage that the person has when you are outside of your ship and you're in FPS versus when they're not, you know? And I think part of it is bunkers only have one entrance and one exit.
Yeah.
That's a big way. And, you know, it comes down to, let me ask you, because I know you have more experiences, is the railgun effective enough? Is the handheld missile effective enough? Is there a tweak they can do to that situation to give a little bit more advantage to the player who's on foot?
You know what is the most annoying part of this? It's like
God
you
marker?
can have the guts, not only the gut mark. The gut mark is a known issue, but the one that is even worse is the for reaction, because you can have the guts to go outside, put this guy with the railgun, and put 2 shots, but these guys just need like one single lucky shot, and you're gonna be tumbling in the area nonstop. And somebody that is using distortion can even keep you in that state forever. And people do that shit. Like I do it. Like I go Everest with the distortion and it just tumble you until you rage quit.
If I was going to point out one single piece of development that I thought was the stupidest thing and that has been the dumbest thing that's been in the game and one of the most annoying things, it would be force reactions. Period.
Yeah.
It's the worst. It is so
worst.
clunky, and so it takes your immersion out of the game completely because it's so clunky and so stupid. I absolutely hate them.
Like this guy could be aiming me with these gladius, the 3 guns, trying to shoot the ground, and he will not hit me. I know we're shooting the railgun, but all he has to do is that AoE that is gonna throw me through the air, and now I cannot do anything.
He doesn't even have to shoot you with a weapon. He doesn't even have to shoot you with a weapon. He just has to fly by, and the engines knock you over.
And causes so many bugs and issues. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Like,
I think maybe one day there'll be a time for force reactions, but they need to be dialed down significantly, and they're just kind of silly.
Yeah. The other thing, like the contact design, like it's very easy to just point that shape to somebody and pin them down. So there is no context to places right now. The only one that might work is like Microtech and the trees, like you can hide on some trees, but
yeah,
I wish we have more of those like contexts around some locations. So actually don't have that issue where a ship just can pin you down all the time or blow up your ship for nothing. Now we noticed, like we have been studying a little bit the law system or the law mechanic this last patch.
Okay.
We noticed, for example, that if you're a criminal and you leave your ship, the moment you leave your ship, the ship is gonna turn what you call it?
Blue?
Blue. It's not gonna be a flag
Wow.
red.
Okay,
So
that is a big
potentially
change.
that's a big change. Now we haven't checked in every single patch because having putting a lot of patch, but we noticed that in a patch that you leave your ship having crime set and the ship is gonna turn blue. So if somebody come and blow it up, it's gonna get a crime set.
Okay, yeah. It's weird because I do think your ship is. That's a weird one. I don't know how I feel about that one yet because
Yeah, that's why I fly
think-
on Aurora. Like I try to not attach too much to what I'm flying and try to like learn to survive and come out from the situation. But yeah,
sure.
some people like don't like that.
No, I mean think the Millennium Falcon, right? Like the reputation precedes the ship, not the they don't call it Han Solo.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways you would want the reputation of the crew to be a part of the reputation of the ship. So it being red, if you're red, sort of makes sense to me, but the yeah, I don't know. That one's a weird one for me. But I do like the punishment of you just killing a ship pointlessly.
Yeah. Well, I have been playing a lot of PvP game during my like life. I play Atlas. That's a very hardcore PvP game. I play Ragnarok Online. And the reason I mentioned is like again the topic about like how easy is to get access to gear in this game. It kind of impacts me because, for example, in Ragnarok, if you want to do PvP, you grind a lot to go and do PvP. The same in Atlas. If you're gonna do PvP, you go and grind. But in this game, you spend like 10 minutes and you're ready to go.
Yeah. Yep. Maybe that's Star Citizen's biggest flaw. It's just a title, but there's a lot of issues with the game. That's for sure. So, I don't know, Scarlett. Is there anything that comes to mind? We're a little over 2 hours, so it's probably time to start calling
I'm good.
the show.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad a lot of people are on the same page, and I think a lot of people brought up like unique situations that they've been in themselves. You more than anybody here. I thought that like your call was probably I'd give you MVP today most likely for coming in and sharing the solo player's experience, and then on top of that with a crime stat, it's even more brutal, right? So it's game breaking in so many ways, and it's gonna take some work to resolve, but I don't think it's that that major of a thing
sometimes. Like it's so little thing that they could like tweak, and they can make like anybody's like experience more organic and interesting.
Exactly. And I don't think it's any massive changes that need to happen to get there.
No, very little changes.
Yeah. All right, Scarlett. Well, I had a really good time, and I appreciate it, and I'm so happy you called, man.
Yeah. See you, man.
We'll talk to you soon. You too. All right, and I think that's going to do it because Locke never responded to my message, and I couldn't get any mods in there to go check his mic because it's a little later in the day. They're usually offline around now, so no mods. Feel free to spam in the Twitch chat. But yeah, that was, in my opinion, one of Star Citizen's biggest flaws, and I was really bummed out because I didn't think we were going to have a show today because nobody was popping into the voice chat, and we ended up having, I think, one of the better shows we've ever had with the variety of scenarios and variety of solutions. I thought it was really, really good. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. And again, not a topic that needs to be resolved right now, but not one that is, well, hold on. Locke just messaged me, so maybe we can pop him in for a moment. He said mic is fixed. All right. Last caller then, guys. Let's bring him in. Mr. Lockups. Lock us. Lock, voice check.
Can you hear me?
I hear you great. Awesome.
All right. Woo!
Hey,
That was a
we
bit
got
messy.
there. That's okay. We got there. Encore.
Right.
Everybody's screaming encore. All right. I don't know what you've heard, what you haven't yet, but you got the floor, man.
Okay, I pretty much heard everything, and I think in summary, definitely, I think CIG, I remember a couple of months ago, did say that they actually did plan to turn every single station hangar, or every single station pad into a hangar.
Yes,
So
personal
there'll be no
hangars. Yeah.
I think that's the plan.
I think there'll still be pads, though, but it's like more of a Grimhex thing where they don't give them to you, but you can land at them, maybe?
That'd be a good compromise where it's like the pads are basically like, if you can land on them, you got them. If otherwise, if you actually want to hang, you have to contact ATC, do the procedures, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
I do also think a big thing that they'd have to improve is it seems like you could pick up sensor contacts when they're fully enclosed in something. So like it'd be nice to spawn your ship in a hangar, power it up, get it fully ready to go. But because you're fully within the hangar until you open up the doors, they can't see you unless like they can look inside the hangar.
I love that you just called, because that's something nobody brought up, I didn't think of, and is very obvious thing to change.
It's unusual, with sensor contacts, like how you can sense things that are behind cover when even in because I do DCS, which is like a hardcore sim.
Yeah.
They do simulate the fact that like if you're near the ground, like you can't detect the target as well. You'll constantly break and get the lock. That's something that Star Citizen should definitely do. It's like if you're within a hangar, you should be unrecognizable. So like, yes, you could be a single person trying to lock down a station, but you don't know if the person who just spawned in a hangar is the hangar in front of you or the hangar behind you.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a big thing. Slightly better security response would also be good if it's like a single person trying to lock down a station. If it's a group, I mean, that's a group. I mean, you should reward people who try to get together a whole group, and it should be hard to escape from a group.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I think most of that stuff is like, Star Citizen has like developed the proper solutions to resolve that, but the servers just run so poorly that it's hard to see them for right now. So it seems like they're not there, but they just don't work well.
Yeah. So I think that pretty much takes care of all the high security stations. Like low security stations, like you should be kind of like, you should still have the option to use a hangar, but like it's pretty much at a low security station, like you should go in knowing that shit's gonna happen.
Yeah, but shit's gonna happen, I still think is is garbage when it comes down to, I gotta leave my ship. It's part of the game, man. And me just having it blow up all the time is just one of those things where it's like, I'm not gonna, I kind of put my foot down in that scenario. There has to be, it's gotta be better than that. It can't just be shit's gonna happen. Because like even at Jumptown.
Yeah, I was gonna say now with stations, and situations like that where it's a bit more lawless, or even just like high security stations, there should be kind of an option where if the station detects there's a basically like combat going on in the area around the station, it could have like something where like a locker basically unlocks and you can have access to railguns and missile launchers that fight back with.
I don't know. I think you more should come prepared for that. That's where the shit is going to happen. You should come prepared kind of thing. I just think the leaving my ship out there in the state that the game is in today, where it would blow up in 10 seconds, what do we do about that?
Yeah, I think that the only thing I could think of is, again, maybe something like, again, as far as the stations are concerned, trying to summon the ship, like you should have the option to spawn in a hangar.
Uh-huh.
So at the very least, you can get in, get your shields and weapons, everything powered up fully before you leave. That's the only solution I think that's going to really solve it for stations.
Okay.
Now for ground, I think the biggest thing with ground combat is, didn't they say a while back they wanted to get like caves that you can fly a ship into?
They do have those.
Yeah, but they're not super common.
No, there's only a few, and that just comes down to, again, servers. They can't put They said they wanted to have hundreds of caves on each moon and planet, and they have like 3. You know.
So here's an interesting idea. For like all those like jump town areas or anywhere like you would reasonably expect like combat to happen, where people would attack ships, try to hide a cave somewhere in the vicinity, and then it would be up to the player to go like, okay, let me see if there's a cave nearby, fly your ship into that cave, and then exit the cave to the facility.
Oh, maybe. Okay, like, yeah, good idea, but I think it's just a better thing to be like, instead of cave, cover. You know, just define cave as cover, and cover can mean trees, it can mean brush, it can mean many things. Like the first thing I think of is one of the rebel bases, right, in Star Wars. You saw the ship going down into the jungle, and it just disappeared.
Yeah, definitely. I know. I was listening to most of the podcast, and I was definitely a lot of people already touched on cover, and that way I think cover is going to be an important thing. Although I think if they do try to push towards more of the cover route, definitely make it so that if you power off your weapons and engines, and you just have your shields running, you're relatively hard to find, especially with cover.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that could help is I know this might affect their one of their new funding things, but have ship skins available to purchase that are basically camouflage patterns. So you don't have to spend real money. You can just go to like custom Cousin Crows or one of the other ship spots, buy like forest camo paint, and you can apply it to any ship. And then that way, when you do go land, at least it's a bit. It's not, you don't have like a silver freelancer sitting out in the open. It's more like it's more appropriately camouflaged.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how effective it would be, though. I just wonder still, like, the geometry of the ships. Would camouflage work? How well would it work?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be one of those things where it depends on again, like if you can get if there's like a valley nearby and like you can get it near some rocks, like it's definitely gonna be camouflage is always sort of a hit or miss thing, and stealth is always a hit or miss thing. So I feel like that's part of the stealth gameplay, is that it's not 100% effective all the time, but it should be enough to at least buy you time.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is we need time.
Yeah, definitely I think camouflage, if you can at least have options and places to hide it, and put even just like camouflage paint, definitely that buys you time, and definitely you need something where your ship's sensors are linked to your own mobiGlass or your own like helmet display, so that if the ship detects like, hey, there's a threat coming in, at the very least you get a head start to run back to your ship to get it fixed or get it powered up.
Yeah, for sure. And the game will... Hold on, I have to sneeze. All right, there we go. All right, now I'm done sneezing. And I have no easy way of muting the mic, so I hope I muted it effectively there for you. I know I didn't mute it for you, Locke, but the stream at least. I couldn't do both at the same time. One had to suffer, so 300 can live. I think what I like the most about is being able to put more power into your radar to maybe have the situation that somebody mentioned where I could see you coming in before you see me, and then that time is in my favor for the moment, while the tactical advantage is in yours.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think, a big thing. That's going to require radar gameplay, which I'm looking forward to, just because I actually have eventually, when I have more time, I want to get a mining group together, and I basically on my own free time use my the Terrapin to go out, explore, find resources, come back. So I'm definitely looking forward to radar gameplay, and that's going to be a big thing moving forward, I think.
Yeah. Somebody in chat said that's not how electronics work when like, oh, weird, when I put more power to my GPU, isn't it more effective and works faster? So, yeah, I'm not sure what they're talking about, but I don't know. There's
kind of. Yeah, so, I think they're definitely you can even just like, yeah, that's another thing I think they also need to work on is components. Is definitely rescaling the components so that like you can buy stealth components if you want to focus on hiding your ship while you're away from it, or you can buy like focus more like have the military graded components do more if you just want to outright like, okay, my ship's kind of in the open, but at least it's well shielded.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, survivability, I don't know, but then at the same time, that really does have knock-on effects for, like, the actual PvP scenarios.
Well, I would imagine, like, I would imagine that you would have to basically dump all your power into shields and, like, completely have your engines off and your guns off in order to actually properly defend your ship long enough to you to get back into it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm down.
That would be the
that.
compromise. Like, you could do it, but you'd have to sacrifice everything in order to have that kind of defense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I brought up earlier, but I like that you tie the component to it as well. So, yeah, like, hey, if I know I'm going to be in a vulnerable position more than normal today, I want to have that when I'm out of the ship advantage. But if I know I'm going to be PvPing or PvEing in dogfighting a lot, I would choose a different component. And that's what Star Citizen wants. And honestly, it's what I want for Star Citizen, is like your choices to matter more and everything. So
yeah, we definitely need the components and the engineering gameplay to matter a bit more. It seems like they kind of do, but not really.
Yeah.
But hopefully, again, that'll be so. I think they're doing an engineering rework for later this year.
They're working on it now, as far as I know. I don't know when we get it, but
that's what I mean. I think it might be due later this year. Fingers crossed. But when it comes out, it comes out.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I have. Okay. I don't know, like, really. And again, with now, I mean, the ultimate solution, I guess you can always say is, bring a multi-crew. But I think, like the previous caller mentioned, I think we definitely need more players per server, so you actually run into people. Because it's weird that, like, this topic got brought up, because I've noticed whenever the gameplay loops that I do, I rarely encounter anyone outside of stations and landing zones.
Yeah, and that's why I think most people won't recognize how bad of a thing that this could potentially be. But I've experienced it enough to realize how bad this is and how important it is to at least be talking about the conversation, because when we get more players, this is going to be horrible.
Oh, definitely, because I remember a couple of times it happening to me a long time, like years ago, and it was bad. And there was like, and I think that was even before we had the railgun, and I was just me out there with my like one energy rifle, just like pewing the guy in like the face just to like distract him.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
but yeah,
Locke, I'm glad we got you in, man. That was fun.
Yeah, I haven't used Discord in a long time, so got it fixed.
Yeah, you're all good, man. All right, buddy. Thanks for coming in.
All right, see ya.
Appreciate it. Have a great one. All right, and now that was Answer the Call. 2.5 hour show. I think it's gonna be. I think people on YouTube are gonna enjoy it as well. But guys on Twitch, if you're just coming in, you missed a big part of the show because obviously it was a long one. This will be up on YouTube. I'm gonna get that up right now as fast as I possibly can. If you're watching on YouTube, I don't know what next week's topic is going to be, but we did have a discussion this morning about how important it is for me to talk about that earlier. I think by Wednesday every week, I should have my goal in mind to have that topic figured out. Or maybe by Friday morning, because an ISC would have come out. Usually ISC spawns some pretty exciting topics. So as always, hit the like button, subscribe, comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitch and you haven't hit the follow button yet, please do so. I'm SaltEMike. I stream Star Citizen quite regularly, along with other games. We do this podcast every week. And that's all I got for you guys. So thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next week.